I always love Brad's specification for this session, which is characterize the world engineering software, in no more than 10 minutes, please. So thank you. It's 11 minutes, 47 seconds, and we're away. So I'm going to try and use market numbers for this, and with engineering in the title of the whole event, I feel that that's a legitimate thing to do. Even if there are some of us in the room, perhaps particularly those who've used a slide rule for real, who don't do quite so many numbers as we used to. Anyway, these are market numbers. Before I start, I want to say something about currency. 2015 was an unusual year for world currencies. The dollar gained against almost every other world currency, and it wasn't just the fact of the gain, it was the size of the gain. So 19.6% against the euro. Now, for us, the next largest change against the euro was 8.2% in 2012. So 2015 was more than twice the largest change we had seen before. A gain for the dollar against the Chinese yuan, which was the first gain against the yuan for 10 years. So currencies were an issue, and to try and deal with that, I'm going to be using constant 2012 dollars to try and eliminate those currency questions. Moving forward to 2016, there's another unusual factor. Autodesk's decision to move to a subscription business model means, well, the estimates vary, but Kambash's estimate is that Autodesk are going to make about $400 million less revenue in 2016 than they would have done if they hadn't made that move. Now, they haven't lost that money. It's all going to come back in 2017 and 2018 and 2019 and 2020. And, but the 400 million in calendar 2016 is 2%, and of the parts of the market that Autodesk compete in, that's about 2% of that 20 billion-ish world market. And it's not only Autodesk, other companies are doing this as well, but the actual numeric impact, the impact on the market is largest for Autodesk. So let's look at that total market. The blue bars are the revenue, and this is excluding electronic design automation. So it includes, inside those blue bars, PLM, by which I mean CAD, CAM, CAE, PDM. It includes BIM, the Building Information Management, but mainly the design parts of BIM, some data management parts, but very little of, in fact, no operations and maintenance BIM. And you see, it looks like quite a nice, steady progression. But if I add the growth numbers, it doesn't look nearly so smooth. So, let's look at that figure there, over 12.5% growth in 2015. Remember, this is constant 2012 dollars. So if you see other numbers, which may have been calculated using 2015 dollars, they'll be different. So if we do a quick calculation all together now, the euro part of this market is about 30%. There's been a 20% change in the value of the dollar. So that calculation done in 2015 dollars would be higher or lower growth? Yes, very good. It is indeed higher and, in fact, lower growth by about 6%. And if we look at that 2016 number and then add back in the Autodesk 2% for growth, we get two numbers for growth which I feel comfortable with, because I stood here last year and said that the growth would be in that 7% range. So let's add some detail into that. So sorry for a rather busy chart. The bars are the same. They're just now not blue colored. They're just the different parts of the market, PLM, BIM, GIS. And I probably should have explained all of those. GIS, of course, is anything to do with maps and addresses. Visualization in that category is engineering visualization, but also includes media and entertainment. The category called Cs, that's a term that Kambashi invented. It stands for Systems, Engineering and Embedded Software. And the blue part here are the development tools used to create the software that goes inside products, for embedded systems. And I suppose that's one of the standout numbers. Okay, still we're in constant 2012 dollars here, but there's 20% for that part. That is the C's part, the ALM for embedded systems, the software development for products. And I think one of the reactions to that could be, what? Only 20%? Aren't we constantly seeing that these smart systems and connected products are exploding at, hundreds, if not thousands of percentage growth? And that may well be true, because these are the tools that are used to develop the software. You'll see some of that effect, but of course the gain between the tools and the actual delivery of the products, there can be a factor there as well. And the other number I'd point out on this chart is that rather low growth for the BIM part of the chart. And again, I'm kind of going to blame Autodesk for this one and the move to subscriptions. The underlying business is not like that. Underlying business is continuing. There's just going to be less revenue in 2016. So there, I'm making a point about a difference between underlying business and what we're actually seeing in annual figures. And so I thought about that and thought, well, hang on, as a group, we want to talk about, well, what is going on here? Is the tide coming in or is the tide going out? We don't just want to know about, particular waves that happen to have broken recently or during a particular year. And I think the way... Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead here. I wanted to add in these EDA figures. These are just straight from EDA consortium publications, so no forecasts for those. But I wanted to add those in to give a sense of scale for this total business. These numbers, of course, exclude all third-party professional services. They include professional services from the software vendors of these products, but no third-party professional services. So you can add, perhaps 50% to these numbers. I mean, I think the truth is nobody really knows, including the large system integrators and provider of consultancy services. They can't actually quite tell you what the 100 or 200 people they've got at a particular site are doing, because they're under the control of that customer. So it's a very hard one to measure. So this is the total market without those professional services. So getting back to that point about what is really going on, what is the underlying trend here, I thought, well, the compound growth rate, again, the constant 2012 dollars, but taken over a longer period, shows this bigger picture. And I've divided here the ALM for embedded systems, which you can see at the bottom. And you can see there the rates of growth, 10% growing in 2010 to 2015, the compound rate, growing to 13% for our forecasts from 2015 to 2018. And then the, dare I call them, traditional parts of the engineering software business, the PLM, BIM, GIS, and so on, slightly lower growth rates, 8.6%. In fact, on our numbers, showing a slightly reducing growth rate, growing still strong, but reducing. And then the interesting comparison is to see those against the Americas. So the Americas, and this includes all of North America and South America, actually going in the opposite direction to the world market, a slightly increasing growth rate between 10 to 15 and 15 to 20, and a slightly faster growth rate for the embedded software development tools than the rest of the world. Okay, where is it in terms of industry sectors? Here the sectors are organized left to right from the largest in total worldwide consumption of engineering software to the smallest on the right-hand side. And you can see those world growth rates. I suppose the interesting ones, services and pharma, process pharma. Oil and gas are inside that process pharma figure, and as you know, there's been quite a change in the oil and gas market and their investments in equipment and refineries and so on, and that's had that effect in 2015 on the sector growth. In fact, I can add in the regional growth. So here you can see world is blue, then America's going left to right, America's in orange, APAC yellow, EMEA grey. And you can see that effect has been biggest in the Americas. And I haven't really drilled down into that, but I would assume that that's to do with the amount of investment that was going into shale and the oil and the shale oil and gas, and the way that that very quickly changed when the oil price changed. So let's move on to 2016, and you can see here, this again is this traditional sector. I've taken out the embedded software development tools, much lower growth rate. Okay, that's just down at that, we saw the lower growth rates before, but taking out the software, it's down at just 2%. If I add in the rest of the world, then I'd point to two, I suppose. If you're the telecoms and utilities sector manager for a vendor, then the chances are the Americas is going to be your focus in 2015. If you're the aerospace and defense vendor, it looks as if Europe will be your focus for 2016. And, you know, I suppose that's consistent. I mean, I know A&D moves at a kind of giant pace, but that's consistent with Airbus overtaking Boeing for the order book just recently. So let me move on. I'm going to skip over this one. This is the kind of chart marketing managers can use to pick out sectors. But what I want to go is to a chart that's impossible to read. And this is because there are 112 vertical sectors across the top. There are 53 countries down the side, which is the level at which we research the market in order to be able to match to particular segmentations. The big sectors are on the right-hand side, the big countries at the top. So the top right is where the most growth is. I think the interesting thing is the 5-year growth, the US dollar value of the growth, and if you pick out those numbers, this is actual dollar value, the top 10%, 20%, and 30%. In my view, you know, there's no surprises in the top right-hand corner, but the outliers are interesting, and there they are. Mexico, manufacture of motor vehicles, Russia, scientific development, where of course there's a different relationship with research institutes, and perhaps here, clocks and metrology is interesting. And if you think of the growth of laser metrology on the shop floor, perhaps that's not surprising. So I'll finish off with a country league table. I've highlighted China. In fact, I'd like to point out the UK's achievement in 2015 in overtaking France. May not be a big deal here. It's big in the UK. Well, in the PLM community anyway. Okay, and you know, stable top 3, USA, Japan, and Germany, and congratulations to Russia having been on this chart, you know, since 2010, and India, who will enter in 2018. And I'm sorry, I have overrun by a minute. Thank you all very much.